Aha. Okay, so now officially that we're recording, I want to welcome everyone to our January monthly meeting for the Culver City Democratic Club. This month, we have updates coming from our national committee member who is here to join us, R.L. Miller, as well as we're going to hear from our candidates from LA Council District 10, which is right next door to us. As you remember, we discussed that Council District 10, we have some overflow and overlap, and it would be just really good to, kind of make friends and be friends of our, future council people, even in LA City. So after RL's updates, we'll go right into our Council District 10 candidates who are arriving. And then Tad is also he's done a great job at getting all the candidates here for us from Council District 10. So I'm going to let him take that part of the meeting. So with that being said, RL, I'm going to go ahead and spotlight you, okay? There we go.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Leah, for setting this up. For anybody who doesn't know me, my name is R.L. Miller. I'm one of your DNC members. I'm generally known as a climate hawk. And my first order of business is to apologize because I've got a problem with my eyes. I'm seeing the doctor tomorrow. And so if I can't put on any makeup, if you were intending to judge me by the quality of my mascara, you can just give up now. In other words, I look horrible and I'm rubbing my eyes constantly. So I apologize for that. And I got a couple of hyperactive dogs in the background. So as I say, I ran for the DNC on climate, and I also run an outside group by the name of Climate Hawks Vote. And if you're on my email list, generally, if you were on my email list in 2021 and 2022, you know that I was one of the people campaigning for a full year to get the bill that started off as Build Back Better passed. We did finally get it passed. It did take a full year. And it is an awesome bill. And unfortunately, nobody knows anything about it. And I say this because people like our leaders, like Joe Biden, will say, and we passed the largest climate bill since ever. And everybody claps. And then they move on. And nobody knows what's in the bill. And the truth of the matter is that the bill is awesome. It's got stuff in it to set a new policies for the United States. It's got stuff in it to help communities. It's got stuff in it to help people. And poll after poll shows that Democrats don't know what's in the bill. Meantime, Biden is up for re-election, and this is his single biggest legislative achievement. And this bill is like what's to his reelection what the Affordable Care Act was to Obama's reelection in 2012. In other words, what has Obama done? First thing out of every Democrat's mouth is he passed the Affordable Care Act. First words out of Democrats' mouths should be he passed the Inflation Reduction Act. And people don't really do that because they don't really know what's in it. And what I want to do is give you the tools that you can take to explain to your neighbors and friends what Joe Biden has done and why he deserves to be reelected to finish the job. And so first, just a quick show of hands here. You can raise your hand or do the virtual hand thing. Who here followed the negotiations? We started off in 2021. We split off one bill that became the Bipartisan Infrastructure Framework, aka the BIF, that passed in 2021. Biden then basically negotiated for a solid year with Joe Manchin. And finally, after a very tortuous path, we had Build Back Better became the Inflation Reduction Act. Who here followed all of that to some extent? Yeah, this is typical in any room of Democrats who are involved. I get comments like excruciating, fact check true. But who here feels pretty comfortable that they actually know what's in the bill? Yeah, it's okay. That was like one more hand up than I usually get. Um, so like I say, even the political junkies followed the political negotiations, but nobody knows what's in the substance. So I'm here to try to educate you guys about that, and I promise not to use the word climate in the first part of this.
Do you need to
And
share your screen? I'm sorry, I forgot to ask that.
no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I may at one point, yeah. I'm not very good with all that, but if I need to, I'll try. And if it bogs things down, I won't try. I'll give up and I'll just post links in chat.
Okay, you have a sharing ability now.
Got it. Okay. So the first thing I want to say is that if all goes well, that is to say, if Biden gets reelected and the Republicans don't claw back pieces of this like they're intending to, Biden may well be remembered as the most transformative president since FDR. And every time I say that, people roll their eyes. Even if they're off screen, even if they're on screen, they're rolling their eyes in the back of their head and they're going, really? Hear me out. Okay. What the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure bill and a third bill called Chips and Science, what these three bills represent together is a new industrial policy for the United States. And if you're not familiar with industrial policy, it's the general idea that a country prioritizes a segment of manufacturing. They boost that segment at home. They try to attract companies at home. They impose tariffs and set up trade barriers to competitors in other countries. They try to do most favored nation trade deals, et cetera, et cetera. Think Japan in the 1980s. And for the last 40 years, if not before then, we have not had a formal written industrial policy. We have had an unwritten industrial policy. And that industrial policy has been to come up with a great idea here at home and to come up with a way to use that great idea, let's say data processing, turn it into things like smartphones and robot vacuums, and make stuff and export the jobs that make that stuff to China and other places, and have all of the stuff that came out of the idea that was invented in America imported back to us from China, then wander down Main Street, Ohio, and wonder what the hell happened to this country. And that's what we're trying to reverse here. And let me be more explicit than the DNC probably wants me to be. This is a departure from the 1990s Bill Clinton era of neoliberalism and globalism. This is very much, I really hate to use the phrase America first, but this is making stuff in America in order to put our people back to work, which we need. And it's working. What we are doing with the Inflation Reduction Act is we are favoring making of certain kinds of stuff. When I bought my solar panels back in 2017, I paid $1,000 extra because I wanted solar panels made in the United States. And it was very, very hard to find them because during the Obama years, they sort of got the solar panel business going, but it was primarily, but the making of solar panels has drifted off to China, and almost all solar panels these days are made in China, except for the ones that are now coming out of a factory in Georgia. There are also factories in Kansas, in Tennessee, in Kentucky, in Texas. In other words, we are suddenly manufacturing a lot of stuff. And it's what I call green jobs in red states. If you want to take away anything at all from this first part, it's number one, industrial policy, and number two, green jobs in red states. Kansas is getting a new battery factory from Panasonic. They're going to be building parts to go into Tesla cars. And I was sitting there at the Philadelphia Democratic National Convention meeting last winter, rhapsodizing about how awesome this was. And the person that I was talking to, the chair of the Kansas Democratic Party, had no idea. That's how little the Inflation Reduction Act is getting noticed. But it's also how transformative it is, because this isn't the biggest auto factory in Kansas or the biggest battery factory. This is the biggest factory of any kind in the state of Kansas. And in order for the factories to get tax credits, they have to promise to pay their workers a living wage. And we are ending up with middle-class jobs that you can raise a family on. And manufacturing jobs in particular have a multiplying kind of effect. That is to say, one manufacturing job doesn't just support a family, it also helps support the pizza delivery guy and the construction guy who's building homes for the next guy's home, and et cetera, et cetera. And so manufacturing jobs are particularly prized, and they're not going to California. They're mostly going to the red states, because unfortunately the red states have right to work laws and the governors are being very competitive. Georgia in particular, governor really likes Inflation Reduction Act jobs. This isn't being very publicized very well, by the way. Biden went to Lauren Boebert's district about a month ago because there was a groundbreaking for a factory making wind parts in her district, and it just didn't get enough media attention. He has promised to go to Marjorie Taylor Greene's district because her district is going to be getting one of those factories. So when he says, "See you at the groundbreaking," it's quite literal. But not enough Democrats know about this and are talking about it, and I'm trying to get people more excited about it. So first part of this, as I say, green jobs, red states, new industrial policy. And there's a resource I want to give you guys that is real simple. It's invest.gov. Heather, I see you've got your hand up.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I was just trying to wait until the end, but I
Oh.
want to say talking points would be really helpful for us Democrats that go out and speak to people. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask for that. You know, my history is working for Kamala, and, you know, we always had talking points that came from the administration. That's helpful from our DNC leaders. Thank you.
I have written out talking points and I have given them to Jamie Harrison at the DNC. And nothing has happened, and it's been 3 months. So I'm actually going to go follow up with him. I get this request a lot. I've maybe given at least a dozen of these talks, and everybody asks me for the talking points, and I keep on saying I'm waiting for the DNC to put their stamp of approval on it. And at this point, I'm just gonna give up and tell the DNC to, I'll distribute my own darn talking points. But invest.gov. If you look at this site, and remember I mentioned before that it wasn't just the Inflation Reduction Act, it was also the bipartisan infrastructure bill. That was the nuts and bolts roads and bridges. I'm going to try to do the screen share thing. Please be nice to me because I'm not very good at this. I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to show you what it looks like on my phone because you're probably going to be doing this on your phone. Okay. If you scroll down past the solar panels, you will see a tab that talks about private investments, and it's got a map of the US with a lot of dots. And it looks
I'm going to show,
like,
I'll share my screen. It's invest.gov.
Thank you. Do not bother looking at the private investments. Scroll down to the tab that says public infrastructure.
Keep going down. Wait.
No. You're go back to the map.
Mm-hmm.
Now
click
click on public infrastructure. You want to know what Biden has done for you? Every single one of those dots is a project either under the Inflation Reduction Act or the bipartisan infrastructure bill. That's a lot of dots, people. And that's why I'm recommending you just get this on your phone. And you want to know what Biden is, if you're talking to a neighbor who said, what has Biden done for us? You just pull out your phone and zoom in and go have fun playing around with it. The private infrastructure tab is good too, but public infrastructure is my favorite one because there's so many dots. Okay, I want to switch gears for a moment and talk about a different part of the Inflation Reduction Act. And this is another one of those show of hands kinds of things. Who here, because we're Democrats and we volunteer, and we don't just volunteer for Democratic Party, we also volunteer for a lot of other things. Show of hands, who here volunteers at a nonprofit, an animal rescue organization, a school board, a homeless shelter, a 501c3 of any kind, a nonprofit, a city council, a church, synagogue, or mosque? At this point, I'm seeing, 15 hands out of 25. Yeah, that's a lot. The two phrases you need to know. Number one, direct pay. And number two, that means free money. Do I have your attention? Yeah. The federal government will reimburse your nonprofit, your small organization, your church, synagogue or mosque, your small city council, your library board, et cetera, for clean energy projects. And yes, this includes schools, your school board. If you want to, for example, put solar panels on your church, the federal government will reimburse you the cost. Not all the cost, it's up to 30%. But if you shell out the money, they will reimburse it to you. If you want to put in a garden at your school, they will reimburse you. If you want to turn your library into a disaster resilience center, which means upgrading its infrastructure, upgrading its solar storage and such like that, then the federal government will reimburse you. This is called direct pay. This is not a competitive grant. This is not 50 will apply and 3 will be chosen. This is the federal government will reimburse you. And one of the people who is evangelical about this provision her name is Katie Thomas. She is the former energy and environment staffer for Bernie Sanders. She wants people to be creative, and she is helping to direct the implementation of this. I hope I have your attention. And incidentally, the people who are working on this want to get the money out to communities as quickly as they can, because yes, they are worried about Republicans trying to claw it all back. I'm gonna put an FAQs in the chat. Their Treasury Department was writing regulations on this. It's not completely done, but they were supposed to be done by the end of last year. There are onerous provisions like you must pay your people a living wage. And it's a little more complicated than I'm making it sound, but it's a really important part of the Inflation Reduction Act. If I were to tell you every single program that is in this bill, I would be here for 48 hours solid. And honestly, some of the stuff that is in this bill, they don't even know what to do with it. Sanders wrote in a provision for $25 billion for a greenhouse gas reduction fund and didn't really have a clear idea what to do with it. And the last I heard, smart people at Treasury and EPA also didn't quite know what to do with it, and they were just being creative. Your federal government at work, folks. But I want to, if you are a member of a volunteer organization, if you are one of those people on the board of your local nonprofit of your domestic violence shelter, or you're helping the homeless, or your school board, or whatever, please dig into direct pay, apply for it. It's not super fast moving. They're trying to shovel money out the door as fast as they can, but it may be as long as 2 years to get refunds. But this is the kind of example of community oriented benefits that nobody knows anything about, that I'm doing my best to educate Democrats about, one Democratic club at a time. I'm going to briefly talk about electric school buses, because if you don't know that electric school buses are awesome, just trust me, they are. EPA just on Monday announced their first a round of grants available in 2023. And apparently Los Angeles City got a number, but there's a glitch on the website where I can't see how much LA City got. Culver City didn't get any. Do you guys already have electric school buses? Or are you LAUSD, or you're not LAUSD?
We are CCUSD, our own school district. And as far as I know, we do not have electric school buses. We have electric city buses, but not school buses.
We don't have
Okay.
school buses, I don't think at all, but we do have a program where the students can get free fares on the local buses.
Okay.
I can just add that we do have a couple buses, mostly for our students with disabilities, and right now they're not electric, but we are looking at it. But we have a very small number.
Okay, I'm just going to drop the link into the chat because they are opening up the grant program for next year. Please do look into this, see if this fits your community, and hope that this helps. This is a competitive grant, by the way. 50 applied and 5 were chosen, that kind of stuff. I can give you the stats on it if you really care. But I'm going to move on to the final part of my talk, because I know you've got to hear from candidates who are actually more important than I am. And the final part of this is what's in this for me. I've talked about policy, I've talked about communities. I'm now going to talk about what's in this for individuals. And this is the part that everybody knows, but I always get curveball questions, and if I don't know the answer, I will try to track this down. And your website is going to be cleanenergy.com, or excuse me, cleanenergy.gov. Again, this is a White House site. And if you mouse down from the solar panels at the top, you will see a picture of a house. This is the part where I start talking about the $7,500 tax credits for cars, but it's not just for cars, and it's not just for solar panels. It's also that if you've just bought yourself a nice new electric vehicle and put in a home charging, if you also need to upgrade your electrical panel, there's money in there for that. If you want to put in a heat pump, there's money in there for that. Heat pumps, by the way, despite their name, are both air conditioning and heating things that are apparently very, very energy efficient. If you need to upgrade your water heater and make your water heater into a heat pump, there's money in there for this. I will note that Joe Manchin did a very good thing, in my opinion, which was that he made sure that these benefits do not go to rich people. If you earn more than $500,000 per year as a married couple, you cannot get benefits. I'm sorry. If on the other hand, you are a middle or lower income people, you can get tax benefits. So this is all of this is some of this is not quite done. So the heat pumps, I tell people that they're not fully done with them, and the way that you will know that they are done with the tax credits and the rebates is when you cannot walk into Home Depot without 3 guys shoving brochures down your throat. You walk into Home Depot or Costco and the solar panel people are all over you. Well, the heat pump people will be just like that. And this is going to be an enormous construction boon, and it's going to be totally awesome. We're not quite there yet, by the way, but we will be soon. And the heat pump rebates are pretty good. It's $2,000 tax credit and $8,000 rebate. So I'm going to give a little bit of my own opinion, which is on the electric cars stuff. If you are looking to buy a new car and you don't need to buy one this year, wait till next year. Two reasons for that. Number one, they just dropped the number of cars that are eligible for the tax credits way down in January of 2024. 2023, a lot of cars were eligible for the tax credits because basically the auto manufacturers all whined and moaned and said, brand new program, give us a break for a year, let us get up to speed. So lots of cars were eligible for the tax credit. Then 2024, suddenly only, instead of 40 cars, suddenly only 13 cars are eligible. The auto companies really want to change that. That's why they're building all those new factories, trying to get all that stuff, all the new cars, parts online, because cars have to be made in America up to a certain percent to qualify for the tax credits. Second reason to wait to 2025. So the longer you wait, the more cars will be available and available for you to get the tax credit. Second reason to wait is right now GM and Ford are issuing people adapters if you are, so that you can plug your new GM or your new Ford Mustang or Ford Lightning truck into the Tesla system. Next year, they will simply start making their cars compatible with the Tesla system at the charge port, and you won't need to worry about the adapters. You know, if you want to buy a Tesla, the Tesla system is totally awesome. The Tesla owner is not so much. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. And final point on the subject of cars. If you are not somebody who's planning on shelling out $50,000 for a new car, but rather you are looking at a used car, there is a provision in the Inflation Reduction Act where you can get up to a $4,000 tax credit for buying a used EV that costs up to $25,000. You have to go to a dealer. This isn't a private sale. And I know you're thinking, what? You can't get a Tesla for $25,000? But yes, you can. You can certainly get cheap Leafs and Bolts, which I don't really recommend, but older Teslas, I actually just sold my 2017 Tesla for less than $25,000. So they are starting to come online. The older Teslas are starting to come online. And again, you will have a tax credit of $4,000 for a used EV. And that was written into the Inflation Reduction Act by one of our Los Angeles area congresspersons, Jimmy Gomez. So I'm trying to talk as fast as I can and cover as much ground as possible, but I want to pause for a second, take a breath, and see if there's any questions.
Yeah, we can take, we have time for maybe one or two questions. If someone has a really burning question for RL.
Otherwise, just drop it in the chat.
And then is it, do you have your contact info if someone does like later on, something pops up, they can reach out to you or send an email?
Yeah, and let me give you the sort of closing spiel, if you will. You don't follow me on Twitter. I'm really trying to stay away from Twitter. I'll drop my email address in. As I say, I'm a DNC member, and if you're on the e-board, I would certainly appreciate your vote, but I'm not doing this to get your vote for e-board. I'm doing this because I think it's really important that you be able to communicate with your friends, families, and neighbors. What has Joe Biden done for me lately? I'm in the climate lane. The big other thing that is in the Inflation Reduction Act is $35 insulin for seniors, which, as I understand it, is totally awesome. It's not my lane. So I can't tell you anything helpful about it other than that it's a game changer for a lot of senior citizens. If you sign up for my emails at climatehawksvote.com, I try to build political power for the climate movement. If you were on my email list, back in late 2021, I was asking you to call your senator to pass the Inflation Reduction Act. And tomorrow it's going to be to try to stop line 5. And next week, I'm actually going to be doing a series of webinars going into the Inflation Reduction Act in more detail over the next few months. We also do endorsements for political candidates. We've endorsed Laura Friedman locally in the Los Angeles area, and we're eyeing a couple of other California races. We've endorsed Ruben Gallego in Arizona. And please stay active. And remember that the way that we build good policy is by electing good Democrats. Thank you. Please take the spotlight off of me.
Yes. You looked fine, by the way. I know I completely can understand how that feels. But thank you so much, RL. That was really enlightening and definitely had some information that even I did not know. And I think that it's really important to emphasize this. I think I put in the chat that I believe DNC leadership really needs to get up on that PR campaign. Especially in light of events going on globally. So I think that this is really big to share as we're talking to people and as candidates are out there talking to their hopefully future voters. Sprinkle a little magic in there for the greater cause. Great. And speaking of candidates, Tad.